श्री गुरु तेग बहादुर साहिब के 350वें शहीदी दिवस को समर्पित पंजाब सरकार की श्रद्धा और सत्कार से भरपूर पहल। पंजाब के 23 जिलों में गुरु साहिब के जीवन और बलिदान को दर्शाते लाइट एंड साउंड शो। श्रीनगर, गुरदासपुर, फरीदकोट और तख्त श्री दमदमा साहिब, तलवंडी साबो से अनंतपुर साहिब तक 4 महान नगर कीर्तन तथा 23, 24 और 25 नवम्बर को अनंतपुर साहिब में होने वाले भव्य समागमों में मुख्यमंत्री सरदार भगवंत सिंह जी मान की ओर से सभी को नतमस्तक होने का हार्दिक अनुरोध। आइए अपनी अटूट श्रद्धा और सत्कार के साथ इन समागमों का हिस्सा बने।
Well, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology (IT) has officially notified the Digital Personal Data Protection Rules 2025, putting India's first comprehensive data law into full effect. Now, these rules operationalize the dpdp Act of 2023, laying out how companies must handle your personal data and what rights you as a user now have as far as your personal data goes. The new framework introduces a strict consent-based system for platforms ranging from Instagram and Facebook to Amazon, Flipkart and digital payment apps. The goal is to ensure every user knows exactly how their data is used and give them real control over it. And remember, there are consequences to these rules not being followed. Now, under the new rules, companies that misuse or mishandle data can face penalties of up to 250 crore rupees. All platforms have been given 18 months to fully comply, after which violations will attract heavy fines. But now, officials say that this timeline could be compressed.
We have been discussing with the industry the first set of rules that we have published. Basically, this gives a very reasonable time frame depending upon what the industry's ask was and what our thrust was. But we are also in touch with the industry to further compress the time which is required for compliance, because exactly the same argument we have given to the industry, that you already have a compliance framework which is existing in other geographies. Why can't you replicate? And they are quite positive on this. So as we go forward, once the data protection board is put in place and a complete digital framework which has already been prepared, that is rolled out, after that, we'll have further amendments in the rule so that we can compress the timelines.
All right, and let's go further into this story. Joining us this morning is Kanish Gaur. He's the CEO of India Future Foundation. Good morning, Kanish. Thank you so much for being here with us. Just give us some more perspective on this story. To begin with, exactly what kind of data are we talking about here? And what rights do citizens have to keep that data absolutely protected?
Thank you, Karthik, for bringing me in. We are talking about user personal identifiable information,
Okay.
which so far has not been regulated, and a lot of time data breaches happen. Your and mine data gets leaked, and companies hold no accountability. That is going to change
Data,
with the new
Kanish, just to be amply clear, when we say data, do we mean our Aadhaar and our PAN details? Do we mean our bank account details? What kind of data are we talking about here?
We are talking about personal identifiable information, which is related to your and my data, which could be used to identify you or me. So we are talking about our biometric. We are talking about information with respect to our credit card, information with respect to our sexual information, our health information, all that data which can be used to identify you and me.
Okay.
Now, so far, what used to happen, we used to give this information to companies, and this used to be stored via cookies or via metadata. And this could be used for marketing to us, or this could be used for identifying what our needs are. And users were never able to get consent how their data would be used, stored, transmitted, or shared with third parties. So, for example, you and I give our information to a bank, but that bank gives away this information to a third party, which
Right.
is used for marketing
Right.
and selling products to us. Now, for that, consent would be required. That's the big part which is changing with this new data protection regulation. So, if any data is breached, the company needs to notify it within 72 hours.
Right.
And if it is not doing that, there is a penalty up to 250 crore rupees, which could be put in.
Right.
So there is greater transparency which will be applied on how user data is stored, transmitted, and there would be more methods where how cross-border data needs to be safeguarded. So big tech
Right.
platforms take a lot of data of ours and then it is moved outside the country as well. They apply algorithmic processes. Also, they had zero accountability so far. So that is going to change in India.
All right, understood that part of the story very well, Kanish. Thanks for that. But help us also understand that when we talk about consent, how easy or how complex is it going to be for users to actually give their consent to use or to protect their data, simply because there is something called dark patterns and there are something called lengthy terms and conditions which become very difficult for anybody to read through and understand, and eventually these dark patterns available mostly online don't permit you to proceed unless you tick that you agree to the terms and conditions. Now, we don't know exactly how those terms and conditions are going to be drafted, and eventually users may be hoodwinked into just giving consent. So how does the government safeguard that? Because what we are also picking up is, and this is something that the minister also mentioned, that there's going to be a board which is constituted, but there doesn't seem to be a real regulator here which ensures that this data is protected.
See, those are far-reaching concerns with the current data protection law. Unlike the GDPR, this law lacks essential rights such as data portability, objection to processing, explanation for automated decisions, restricting meaningful control over personal data. So, unlike GDPR, there are nuances which are not clearly defined. Then we have weak transparency obligations. There are no legal requirements for transparency reports from government or private companies on access requirements, algorithmic processing, surveillance activities, or reducing accountability. It also lacks international data transfer dependence, which were purely on government notifications and which could still be done without clear advocacy, standards or independent evaluation. So it creates more risk and uncertainty for global businesses. With respect to redressal mechanisms, I think the only route is through the board. There is absence of a ombudsman or a appellate privacy tribunal, which limits the access to justice and slows dispute resolution. So these are certain key aspects which is there. The Data Protection Board is truly not a regulator. It has no supervisory or audit power, and it functions only as a adjudicatory body,
Right.
which can play a role after breaches have happened. So the enforcement is only limited, right? It also grants the government far unreaching exemptions when it comes to government agencies without proper proportionality test, sunset clauses, or independent oversights. Hence, it in a way weakens citizens' privacy protection.
Right. So talk to us about these excessive powers that the government is keeping with itself by way of this act, because the government can decide to exempt any organization, a government agency in the interest of national security, national interest. So how does the citizen actually know that what data is actually being shared with the government for what reason, and thereafter what control does the citizen have if the government feels free to exempt certain bodies or certain organizations from using that data in the interest of national security?
See, currently, the government has authorized 10 agencies in India, which can primarily monitor our personal identifiable information, right? And this includes law enforcement agencies, which use various technologies, and they have been under tremendous debate in the past. Now, can this act allow more than 10 agencies to put surveillance mechanisms on citizens? There is no clarity on that right now, right? Could it be 12 or 15? Would there be notification be carried out by the government if this list is increased, or the tools, techniques, or methods used by them
Yeah.
would be increased further? Or would these tools or techniques be procured internationally? Right? There is no clarity on those aspects, right? So I think there is weak transparency obligations when it comes to processing all of this information, specifically by government agencies, specifically on data access request.
Right.
So I think that reduces accountability right now, and surveillance activities have not been minimized. So it gives enough power for government to use surveillance tools, technologies, and even procure them from outside. And it can increase the number of agencies which could basically monitor a common man.
All right. And finally, Kanishk, 18-month timeline. Is 18-month okay to implement something at this scale across the country, across businesses, across all the compliance regulations which are likely to come in? Or do you think there is a chance that this 18-month window could be extended going forward?
Right now the minister is actually talking about shortening the 18-month window to 12 months.
Okay.
So he believes that with more modifications, this act could be tightened. Typically, we saw in EU when GDPR came in, similar timelines of 12 to 18 months were provided, but they are already well prepared with respect to norms. They had systems well defined. In India, defining those systems from scratch, a lot of companies are starting their data privacy journey. They don't even know where their data sets are residing, how they need to obtain consent, what kind of data flows they need to set up. So practically on ground, I believe at least 18 to 24 months would be required for companies which hold large amount of data of Indian citizens, particularly companies which hold large citizen data bases to be used, whether it is telcos or banks. So it will take more time until and unless we already have mechanisms in place. For example, consent manager. There is
Yeah.
no consent manager in India right now.
Right.
So who's going to be the consent manager? The software, the platform, right? The data protection board. How it will be formed? Who would be its key members? What would be the rights of this? Uh, can the data protection board be challenged in court? Right. So all that element has to be clearly defined. So there is a lot of vagueness on some of these aspects. So, right, whether it comes to appointment of the adjudicators, whether it comes to tenure, removal, functioning, are this going to be controlled by the central government? How independent the data protection board is going to be?
Right.
The limited mandate, right? The supervisory powers which are there, right? For example, conducting suo motu inspections
That's right.
or binding code of practice or cross-border data transfers or proactively, auditing significant data fiduciaries. There is no clarity on all of those subjects.
Absolutely, you're right,
So
Kanish. So it is a function of the board on the governing body, literally reacting post-event rather than pre-event, and working in the capacity of prevention. Well, of course, and we don't know yet whether that 18th month window is going to be crunched to 12 or maybe extended to 24. But Kanish Kaur, thank you so much for all those inputs on this very important story and for your time this morning.